Record on this. Okay, so here we go. First of all, thanks for being here tonight. One second, and of course, already. Where? One second. The magic of Zoom, folks. I've been doing this for years, and I still managed to mess it up. Here we go. All right. So tonight really is about just kind of giving us a chance to breathe and be together. We're all of like minds. We're all working towards the same goals. We might be in different programs. We are all undergraduate, NLU undergraduate ed prep students. And I'll tell you how this event came about, but it's really about your thinking about your ROI or your return on investment. I assume I know many of you are going to school in addition to doing a million other things like raising a family, maybe working, all those things. So it is time, and you deserve to think about life after you graduate. You've earned that. So we're gonna get to that first. Go here. Whoops. So obviously you all are pros about muting your mics, and this is just a reminder. Not muting your mic is the new reply all. If you've ever hit reply all by accident, you know what I'm talking about. Don't do it. And then there's a little diagram on how to mute your mic. And then if you can relate to this, since a lot of us are online students, I've been teaching remotely for years. Zoom meetings, we have a ton of them. This is the audio only Zoom meeting, how you look, and then the with video, right? And anything goes tonight, but cameras on during your interview, obviously, if it's through Zoom. Hopefully it'll be face to face, but if it is through Zoom, that's like the the rule number one. You have to turn your camera on. All right. And again, if you have any questions for the group, you can type it in the chat or raise your hand or wait until the Q&A session. And we will have time for you to ask any question you like. And if for some reason your question does not get answered because the response was so great, we might not get everything. We only have an hour. I will follow up and make sure that you get all the questions you want answered. Okay, let's get into it. Why are we here tonight? Okay. And who is this guy, Mr. Green, that keeps emailing me? I emailed the students a lot. If you're asking that, so I'm Professor Green and I teach for the undergraduate educator prep program. And the course that I specialize in is the student teaching seminar portion. So I teach the students I work with are finishing up their capstone experience. They're getting ready to graduate. They're working with live students, and I run the part where we meet every week. And every week, we talk about getting a job. We create an e-portfolio with the purpose of helping them prepare to answer interview questions and showcase all the wonderful things they've done, right? And every week we answer an interview question as our discussion because it's an online class. And I emailed my colleagues, wonderful colleagues who are here tonight that you're going to get to meet, and said, "Are these questions still relevant? Like, are they still being asked?" And boy, did I get an awesome response. Like, and then I'm like, wait a minute, we're on to something here. There's something, we tapped into something that I need to explore. So that led to, okay. And then it led to, let's set up a meeting with all of our students to talk about this. And I know that I never had a chance to do this, but I feel like just kind of common sense. I feel like it's a great thing for you who are preparing to interview and land the job of your dreams that you've worked hard for. Again, that ROI that you deserve, to feel prepared and feel good about it. Okay, so this is a kind of a throwback to any of I know, and I looked at the in the RSVP. I asked what year you were, and there are a lot of seniors and juniors in here, and actually quite a great mix of folks. But this is what teaching was like during the pandemic when my students or I would get disconnected from class, right? So just that's my attempt at dad humor. All right. And then know what you're getting into. This one is, I'm sure if you remember when you were a young learner, I'm sure you felt like this when your teacher leaves the classroom, like it's a big party. So my point of this is to just have a sense of humor. Remember, they're children. And it's okay to have a good time being a teacher. All right. And it's really hard to know if you landed on Zoom, whether your kind of attempt at humor is funny or not. Okay. So, and then finally, all right. So this is very true. And I've heard many students say this, and I want to, my first tip to you, and I'm going to try and embed tips on interviewing throughout the session tonight. And obviously, we'll hand it over to my esteemed colleagues. But when you realize school starts in a week, that baby's adorable. But you don't want to say that during your interview. You don't want to say, I want to be a teacher because of summer breaks. I feel like you all know that, but I just wanted to throw it out there. All right. So save that. It is one reason because it's awesome, but you definitely want to keep that to yourself. Okay. But in all seriousness, better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. I still remember, and I'm sure you all do, that one teacher that you had. I remember several that were just amazing that I'll remember forever from elementary school, which for me was a long time ago. You are doing something important. You're pursuing a career that is going to impact like thousands of lives, depending, families. You are a part, an integral part of the community, whether you live there or not. Where you teach, you are a part of that community, and it's a big responsibility. But I want you to know that you are super important. So you can think of it that way. All right. So here's the agenda. Introductions, a panel discussion. We're going to have an open Q&A, and then we're going to wrap it up. And again, we'll keep it, flexible. And I believe it's anotando. I'm trying to learn Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, but I believe that means take some notes if you have to. Am I right? Anyone? Okay. Again, bad attempt at humor. So I'll pause and go to Bianca. Bianca, before I go on, are there any questions in the chat? I don't know if she can hear me. Oh, she's chatting.
Nope, you're good to go.
Okay.
Oh, well, one just popped up. How do
I
you know
saw
if
it.
you're a good teacher?
We will get to that, I promise. Or it's thereabouts. Okay. All right. Now's the time that I love of this presentation because the people you're about to meet are doctors, authors, marathon runners. They hire students like you. There's an NLU student, my special guest Bianca, who again, if you didn't hear earlier, I've known her for a while now, and I found her on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, come and do this with me. Your students would love to hear from you, and thank you for being here." Um, people in the field, we have if you added up the years of experience with the people on this board that you see, professor, it's, I don't know, hundreds of years. Like, so we have you covered in pretty much anything you can think of. And if I missed anyone from this list, I apologize. I can only see a few faces on the screen, but I deeply apologize, and I mean it when I say these are the dream team. So Bianca, I'm going to open it up to you, and since there's a lot of us, if we could keep it, just tell us about yourself and your journey at NLU. About a minute or so.
All right. Hi, guys. As he said, my name is Bianca Zalkoffer. And I started at NLU back in September of 22. I am in my last semester before I graduate, and preparing to take my content test for ECE and special ed.
Awesome. And where do you work now?
I work for a private child care center as an executive director.
There you go. And Bianca, I reached out to her for a reason. She's amazing, amazing, amazing. All right, let's go on to Professor Brianna Carlson Morales, an award winner, I might add, but I don't want to steal her thunder. Professor Carlson Morales, if you're able to, because I know you're at a dinner, if you're able to talk, please address the group. She may not be. That's okay. It's the magic of Zoom, right? That's how it goes. I'll come back to her. All right, let's go to our marathon runner, newly minted doctor, a awesome professor, Dr. LaRue Fitch. LaRue, if you would introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. My name is LaRue Fitch. I'm an adjunct professor here at National Louis University. This is my third year here at NLU. Great times. I enjoy what I do. During the daytime, I'm an assistant principal here for Chicago Public Schools. This is my 17th year in education. I'm also an author, educational consultant. As Neil said, I'm a marathon runner. I'm actually prepping to head to New York this weekend for the Brooklyn Half Marathon. Outside of that, I enjoy this. I enjoy working with future teachers such as yourselves, supporting students, welcoming diversity, equity, and also inclusion. And I look forward to this conversation this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Fitch. Let's move it along to Professor Connor C. Professor
Okay,
C.
wait.
Oh, what
Brianna
happened here?
said she can hop in.
Okay, all right, let's go back to Professor Carlson Morales. Brianna.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm actually at a dinner right now with teacher education program candidates from my undergrad. So that's why I'm like off camera, but I will be here present for the panel in just a minute. But anyway, my name is Brianna Morales. I'm an adjunct professor in the teacher education program here at National Louis. Some of you I've taught in 220 or 305. I'm also the 2023 Illinois Teacher of the Year. I've been teaching for 8 years now. So yes, I'm a baby teacher compared to many of the amazing veteran educators here on this panel. So I have so much to learn, so much as well from all of you. But I've taught all of my years actually in East St. Louis, District 189, and an alternative high school for students who have been expelled from school. So I'm really passionate about justice impacted youth. I'm also on the school board for the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice, School District 428. So helping kids to believe that they're worth more than the worst thing that they've ever done is something that I'm very passionate about. And on my sabbatical as Illinois Teacher of the Year, I started a nonprofit organization for girls of color in Illinois, where we pair them with mentors in Chicago and East St. Louis. And we also give scholarships to young moms in honor of my former student that passed away. So really excited to see all of you today and to be part of this conversation.
Thank you, Brianna. And to say she is busy is an understatement, right? All right, Professor C, the floor is yours, buddy.
Hey team, I'm Connor C. I'm an assistant professor of special education here at NLU, and I am a newbie here. I just started this past December with an amazing team with someone on this list, Debbie, that I get to work with, which is fantastic. So prior to that, I was a program director of educational administration at Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville. And then prior to that, I was an instructor in their SPED program, was an assistant principal at a pre-K through second grade, and then was a special education teacher up in the Chicagoland area before that. So just super happy to be here with you and here to support you and learn along the way.
Thank you, Connor. Let's turn it over to Ginka. Ginka, I believe I saw you log in.
Good evening, everyone. It's so great to be here. My name is Ginka Popchava, and I'm the adjunct professor of math 103 and 215, which is the calculus 3. I do share a passion of mathematics, and my journey with NLU started in 2009. I'm actually a career changer from engineering who decided to go into education. So I did take classes at National Louis University. I got certified to teach dual language math, algebra 1, algebra 2, all the levels. I do work for a suburban school district U46 as a full-time teacher and part-time adjunct professor at NLU. I'm excited to be here.
Well, you are amazing, and our conversations, we've got to know each other a little bit. You make me feel not so afraid of math. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right, and I believe I saw Professor Rosilla log in. Cara, if you're there and can talk, cool. If not, that's okay.
Oh, I am here.
Yes.
I am Cara Rosilla, and many of you may know me by helping you pass the early childhood content exam, but I'm also an instructor and I adjunct in multiple classes. My journey as an educator started as a first grade teacher, and then I went on and became a reading specialist and wrote curriculum and have served on so many panels interviewing teachers like yourself. And it's such a fun process. So thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops. Go back. Professor Debbie Griggs Holiday, if you would introduce yourself.
Yes, I am happy to be here. My name is Debbie Holiday. Neil calls me Debbie Griggs Holiday. That's okay. Griggs is my maiden name. And I am just happy to be here. I love what I do. I started out as a journalist, actually, as for my bachelor's degree. I started substitute teaching while I was working and ended up doing something that I really love. And I started out teaching instead. I spent about 100 years as a teacher. No, not that long, but maybe about 15, 17 years as a sped ed and gen ed teacher. And then I spent about 17 years in the instructional field. I was an instructional administrator. I ran the gamut of intervention specialist. I worked as a director for the citywide curriculum and instruction. I worked as an area reading coach. Most of the work that I've done has been based on the work that I love doing, which is my doctorate in curriculum and instruction. So that's my first love is just curriculum and instruction. And I've been with National Lewis for about 5 years. And I'm just doing what I love. And I'm convinced that when you do what you love, you really never have to work a day in your life. And so in a lot of ways, that's the way I feel most of the time. Thank you for having me, Neil.
Thank you. I love that. I love that. You've been there and done that and done it again. I love that.
Mhm.
And the next professor I've worked with for about 14 years in higher ed, Professor Diane King.
Hello, I am Diane King. I live in Southern Illinois, outside of Carbondale. I've been here at National Lewis since 2018 when I came over with Neil from Kendall College. I was one of the leaders and designers for the first bachelor's early childhood program in the United States, and that was with Kendall College back in 2003 to 2004. And I met Neil actually about 2007 or 8, I think. Yeah. I went on from there and I created the first associate's in applied science online degree at a local community college down here in Southern Illinois. And then I just stayed on as adjunct at Kendall and then came over, as I said, with Neil in 2018. I've taught a number of different classes in undergrad department, and right now I have student teachers. I love online learning and I have deep passion about helping teachers go to school to get their degrees, particularly women. I have a private practice as an early childhood consultant in Southern Illinois and do a lot of things, but that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Professor King. All right. And I believe I saw Professor Karen Austin on the call. Karen, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Karen Austin. I am an adjunct with National Lewis. I joined the team in 2019, and I recently joined the content team. So I'm excited. Joined the team in preparation, helping the students pass their content test. So I'm excited about that new adventure. A little bit about me, my journey, my first love. I was an early childhood educator when I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And then I moved into special education because I just couldn't figure out strategies to work with students who were struggling in my classroom. So a fun fact, I never referred a child because I learned how to provide strategies unless that child really needed and really showed that they had a disability. And so I think I believe that I made a difference in those children's lives in Chicago Public Schools, where I supported the students in the Dearborn and Harold Ickes project. So it was a really tough tenure as a teacher. I cried every day after school. And another fun fact that I want to share, because I know many students have families and, you're working. I was that mom that had to take my child to school to earn my bachelor's because my mother couldn't afford to send me. And so I understand, and I'm here to talk with you anytime, you need any of those management tips. So I continued on my journey. I've taught in master's classes, I've taught doctoral classes, but I love the work. I had to circle back to the students who are just beginning, because I believe that's where the work needs to begin. And so I was an early childhood educator. I moved to be an assistant principal, and I've held district level positions, and I'm happy to be here to support you tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Austin. And I believe I've got everybody. I don't believe Professor Van Stone is here. And if I missed anyone, please speak up now, and I apologize in advance, but we got a lot going on. So if there's a professor, please jump in. Okay, I think I got everybody. And as you can see, I think it's pretty obvious why this team is together, because like I said earlier, we have pretty much everything you can think of covered, right? These folks are awesome, amazing people, in addition to be accomplished, educators. So pretty much between all of us, we've seen and done everything that can be done, right? I mean, that's pretty fair to say. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into your questions, which is why you're here. All right, so what I did, again, we're going low tech Zoom. So what I did was just put a bunch of questions and thought pieces that we could think about. And I'm just going to open it up to the panel. And you can speak to any of these that you want to. So I'll just read the first 2 or 3, and then you can obviously read the rest. But the first question would be, what is the best advice you can give teacher candidates for their teaching interview and how to prepare? What are some qualities of the most impressive teacher candidates you've interviewed in the past? And how should our students end the interview? This is one that kept coming up in the RSVP. What questions do you have for us? What should they ask at the end of the interview? And then obviously, I just tried to put like teaching points. So can I open it up? Is anybody brave enough to volunteer to take a stab at one of those? Any of those points?
Well, I've done plenty of interviews with new teachers, and I would say 3 things that are really important when it comes to becoming a high quality teacher. And the first is making sure that you understand what high quality instruction looks like, right? And so if you can just remember just 3 words, I do, we do, 3 words or word phrases, I do, we do, you do. And so if you can just remember that when you provide high quality education, that you're providing that education in a way that you are transferring the autonomy from the teacher for the learning to the student. I do, we do, you do. Another expert that I always remember is Vygotsky, when you talk about the gradual release of responsibility and finding those students zone of proximal development. So making sure that you understand what high quality instruction looks like. The other thing, I've talked to young people who were interviewing, and not just interviewing, I spent a lot of time. My initial introduction was really brief, but because I've done so much with instruction, and I did a lot of walkthroughs in classrooms. And I've seen some of the best teachers in the world as far as content knowledge, but they could not control the students. So another important suggestion I have is making sure that you understand, you have some strategies in your toolbox about how to make sure that your classroom management is intact. So find some things like PBIS, you can go to ISBE and find out about PBIS. Another one is a conscious discipline. And I had another one, let me see. Another one I wanted to mention was that one that Chicago Public Schools uses, and that's chance. And so just making sure that you know how to settle those kids down in order to make sure that you can communicate to the students that you understand what should be done. The next thing relates to something that Karen had said, and that is making sure that you know how to support students who need help. I've seen so many young teachers going through walkthroughs and, sitting down with conferences with them, and they really don't know how to support. I had a teacher who was a third grade teacher. I was her reading coach. She was so on top of her games as far as knowing how to teach. But she trusted me enough one day to make this comment to me, and I was just floored, but I was happy at the same time. Her name was Miss Motti. She says, Dr. Holliday, I know how to teach my students that are high functioning, but the students who need help, I don't know what to do with them. I just wanted to give her a hug. I'm like, thank you so much for letting me know that. So it's important as a teacher that you understand how to help students. So familiarize yourself with the RTI process and MTSS and making sure that you know how to help those struggling students who need help. I'll stop right there, but I promise you I could just keep on talking. But if you understand the importance of providing high quality instruction, you know how to make sure that your classroom management is intact, and you know how to help students who need help. It's easy to teach a child or a student who knows the work, but what can you do to bring that child and close the gaps that the child has? So make sure you know how to do all of those kinds of things.
Thank
I
you.
would like to mention, I'm sorry, Neil.
Go ahead.
I would like to mention that it's a great idea before you actually go to an interview to go to the Illinois report card and do your own investigation and learn about the school that you are applying for. What is the population of students? What are the needs of that school? So do some homework in the background before you actually go, and please go with a lot of confidence. And of course, set yourself apart from everybody else. What are the strengths that you are bringing to the table? What is it that sets you apart from everybody else? And I believe that is helpful, because when we do see a confidence, when we see we also look at the body language, the way you present yourself at the interview. Then we use that when we reflect on the candidate after the interview. But please do your homework before you actually go into that room and interview for the job.
I had one of my student teachers post on the discussion board that she had an interview last week, and she did get the position, a third grade special ed teacher in Evanston. And she shared some of the interview questions, and one of them was one I had not heard before. So I have a for you. The principal read her their district plan and then asked for her reaction to it. What were her thoughts about the district plan? So be sure and go to the district to reiterate, Ginka and Debbie, about going to the school's website and looking for specific information about the school on the website, as well as going to the State Board of Education and looking for their report cards.
Thank you. So that's a little taste of what this team brings to the table in terms of preparing for interviews. Awesome stuff. Bianca, I have you in mind, but I'm gonna switch right now to Professor Fitch, if that's okay. We have a lot of students who are applying to Chicago Public Schools. Professor Fitch, anything on this board or anything in general that you could add to this topic to help our students get prepared for that important interview?
Yeah, absolutely. To piggyback off of Diane and Debbie and also Karen, classroom management is number one. I'm gonna be honest with you. You don't have classroom management, everything goes out the window. Collaboration, culture responsive teaching and leading standards, which is a priority here for Chicago Public Schools. Differentiation, which is the MTSS Tier 1 strategy, assessment, and teaching strategies. And with all of that, I know I threw a lot out there. There are 3 areas that I will advise everybody to focus on. That is culture, curriculum, and instruction. You have to know about those 3 areas. Culture goes back to what Debbie talked about, that classroom management. We don't care how beautiful the lesson plan looks, how it sounds, how you come across. If you don't have any classroom management, it will not work. That's number one. How does Tier 1 culture and climate look for your classroom? How's the students' lived experience when they walk into your classroom? Is it teacher-centered or is it student-centered? Here in Chicago Public Schools, we have mostly Black and brown students. So you have to understand diversity and welcome that, appreciate that. within that classroom. I think somebody mentioned knowing about the school, going on the ISB report card. That is great. Also, one of the courses I instruct here is 290, where we focus on asset maps. You have to know a little bit about the school as well, right? What is the school's mission, vision? How are you going to support the students when you get there? How can you speak to that? And I say that because 90% of the time when I'm having teacher candidates come into my school building, I know that they have the credentials. I can see the licensure number. I can see the PL. I can see all of that. That's great. Off back. Wonderful. You have the credentials. Welcome. Are you a team player? Are you coachable? Can I fit you in my team? At the end of the day, if you can't be coached because you display a fixed mindset, I don't want you in our building. We already have some situations going on. I don't need you to contribute to that. I need positivity coming out of you. So we're always assessing body language. Do you have a charismatic approach to yourself? What about your disposition, your mindset, your belief? Do you believe in diversity? Do you believe in equity? I mean, we ask all of these questions, and it's very important for Tier 1 coaching climate. Next, curriculum. How are you teaching curriculum? Right? I'm always saying that we have to be facilitators in the classrooms. Our teachers shouldn't be doing majority of the talking. The students should be doing majority of the talking. We don't know, or we can't assess our actual instructional delivery, our pedagogy, if we are talking majority of the time. So we have to allow our students to talk. And as a teacher candidate, you can utilize that and say, that's going to allow me to become reflective so I know how to adjust accordingly. And then I believe we talked about high quality instruction, that data driven piece, that looking at students from an item analysis lens. We have to really focus on that and be very intentional. Understanding everything is an assessment. You're assessing 24/7 everything that's happening in the classroom. So how are you facilitating small groups? You have to know these new high leverage instructional strategies like Socratic seminar, the Fryer method. You have to talk about turn and talk, close reading. All of these are new strategies that we are trying to currently implement here in Chicago Public Schools. So again, culture, curriculum, and instruction are key. But then to go back to that point I made earlier, you have to have a positive disposition about yourself. You have to display some sense of growth mindset, and you have to be reflective. 90% of this job is you being reflective and understanding. It does not matter where you graduated from. It does not matter your GPA. It does not matter what you got in that methods class. If you cannot make that applicable to the Black and brown kids that you serve, it means nothing. So you have to come in there with that mindset to be open to receiving constructive criticism, right, in a positive way, so you can grow and know that everything is an evolving situation, right? And our students are coming in differently every year, and you have to adjust to that. Also, what's on there is technology integration. A lot of our kiddos are very technological savvy right now. The traditional style of teaching, from the overhead projection or the smart board here and there, some of that stuff is outdated and is thrown out. Our students are so app friendly. We're talking about AI in the classroom. Our students are knowledgeable to chat GPT. So we have to make sure that we're ahead of the game, that we're utilizing this with a sense of a resource, right? So how are you using AI as a resource to support your classroom? We have to make sure that our students are understanding this information and prepare them for the next generation. Um, those are some small areas. I do believe, Neil, all of these are applicable to Chicago Public Schools, but the main ones, like I said, have a strong elevator speech when it comes to curriculum, culture, and instruction, and know something about the school that you can speak to, and how you can be a good team player and how you are coachable.
That's awesome. And you said something at the very end that just kind of made me think of something. So the elevator speech aspect of it. And I interview myself a lot of lately. For some reason, I'm interviewing for deans and higher level positions. And I feel like that elevator speech is important, because even at the higher levels, people with doctorates and all these wonderful degrees sometimes can't answer the question succinctly. Do you ever, and for you or anybody on the panel, like, have you ever been in an interview where a candidate, like, would you suggest they kind of get that elevator speech, which to me is like 1.5, 2 minutes per question, nail it, and then like say, did I cover everything? Or if I missed something, let me know, that kind of a thing. Because when we ramble, which I'm doing right now very well, it tends to like lose your audience, right? Am I right about that? Or
No,
It's
you're
so
right.
funny that I'm sorry.
No, Karen, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
It is so funny. I was just thinking and writing a note about that, about not that anyone was rambling, but I was going to share with the students how important it is, number one, to be your authentic self, because people can see through when you're not. Yes, in education, we use buzzwords, we know the jargon, and we can spit it out by the time, and it's fine because our elevator speech really has all that stuff in it, right? But how can you back that up? What examples can you share? Whether it's something that you've studied, whether it's something that you've had an opportunity to do. You want to be able to do that. You want to be concise. You want to be able to, get that information out though, so that you're not rambling. But I think it's very important that you're able to show examples. I know a lot of the students have portfolios. Do you have that portfolio with you so that you're able to share it? Even if the administrator doesn't have time to look through it, if it illustrates a point that you can just show this, because they want to see, they want to know you know it, but then how is it lived with you? So be able to show those examples. I think that is so important. I also want to touch a little bit on, it is okay to ask. I think one of those questions, I think it came up, or I don't know if it's on the list, one of the questions, you should always be prepared with 2 to 3 questions to ask at the end of that interview. And I would ask, what are the mentorship opportunities? Because a lot of times coming in new, and I understand what Dr. Fitch was saying, I would be a little scared if I had to know all this stuff, right? Interviewing for CPS, but they're here to support. But you have to sometimes, if it's not mentioned, be prepared to ask, would I have a mentor as a first-year teacher coming in? What does that mentorship look like? Ask those questions, because you have to ask for support. Sometimes you're not expected to absolutely know everything coming in. You have to learn the community, the school, the curriculum. It is so much, but you have to know when to say or how to set up support. Have that grade level team member you can go to. How do you handle difficult situations? These are just things that you want to be prepared with, so that the administrator knows you have at least thought about, how to approach these things.
Thank you. So I'm going to switch. Amazing. So I'm going to switch to Bianca. I feel like we need like 2 or 3 hours for this, but I'm going to switch to Bianca because can you tell us about the interview you just went through? And remember, everybody, Bianca is a student. Tell us about the interview you went through. What was something that you remember the most about that interview, or anything you want to share with your classmates?
I think that you guys are coming up with really great things, especially for the newer teachers. The interview that I just went on was more of a like an old school interview. They didn't really ask me about like the newer curriculum teaching styles or anything like that. They just really asked me like, what are your weaknesses? And that's always one question that I sincerely struggle with, because I think so much about the positive. But I just twist it from like, okay, well, this is a negative, but this is how I plan on, working on it and expanding my knowledge in that area. And then they asked like, which I thought this was kind of cool. They asked, what could they do to make me feel valued as an employee? And when I did my staff surveys last year, that was the biggest thing. My staff said they didn't feel valued. And I was like, okay, well, what does that mean to you? And so for them to ask me that and for me to give them an answer, I feel like, okay, well, maybe they do tend to value their employees and take in what they're saying during their interviews and getting to know them as a person, and hopefully add them to a part of their team. And maybe they were asking to see if my values aligned with someone else's, so maybe that that teacher could mentor me.
Thank you for that. And I think you raise a great point. Yes, you are interviewing, and we need money, we need the job, but you're also, you've done your research, you know the school, you know the mission, you know their values, and you're prepared, right? But you also want the school to be a good fit for you, because hopefully this is a career you're going to be there for a long time and you want to be happy at school. So you're kind of interviewing them as well. Am I a good fit for this? And remember that you've earned this, right? You've gone through it. You know, I'm not saying be cocky and walk in like well, they're going to hire me. But yeah, you know, you should feel confident, and you're looking into them as much as they are you as well. So thank you for reminding me of that. So I'm going to switch to Professor Rosilla, and you know what I'm going to ask you, Cara. Could you, and I know there are a lot of students on here who have taken the content test, some haven't, but could you talk about that a little bit? Because it's always a hot topic.
I think one of the most important things that keeps coming up in all of our meetings is just that understanding of content, and how it relates to your methods courses, previous courses, and the connections you can actually make when you're in the field. The pedagogy, I feel like the terminology, the vocabulary, the lesson planning, all of these things that are part of our discussion are pieces in that content exam. You're being assessed on that. And it's so important to not only know the definitions, but also how it applies to the field. Writing the lesson plan, you know, the stages of gradual release of responsibility, you know, modeling, guided practice, you know, and everything that really goes hand in hand with best practices of learning. You know, so it's not just passing the exam and knowing the strategies, it's truly understanding what that content, you know, is asking you.
Thank you. And Cara is a content test guru, which I'm sure Bianca could attest to. Thank you for everything you
Yeah.
did. Okay, so there's some good stuff in the chat. I'm trying to follow everything here. But I want to make sure everybody gets a chance. Professor C, I didn't know, you said you were a principal? I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a assistant principal down in Southern Illinois in Highland, Illinois, right outside of about 30 minutes outside of St. Louis.
So I assume you hired some new teachers. What was that process like where you were?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's been a lot of amazing points. You know, I think another piece that you want to look at potentially is also the 5 essential survey of your school, to get a really good taste of how do your teachers feel about the supports that they're getting, not only, you know, maybe from the community, but also from the administration that's there. And it can give you a good idea of, you know, whether that might or may not be a fit for you. And I think another piece that I thought was, you know, important is you can have all the content knowledge you want, but in these interviews, I want to know also, like, what are your strengths? And I also want to know, I want to have some examples of them. So not just, you know, I'm positive and I'm passionate and I'm timely. Good. Have examples of each one of those 3 things, right? Because if I'm going to ask you right after that, well, give me a time of when you were positive, when others were negative, and I get crickets, then it makes things different, right? So always have an example ready to pull out. And I think the other thing that was big for me is it's okay to have non-examples of when things didn't go great. And that was always a question I had, is give me a time when your lesson plan, you got everything prepared, and then you felt like it just didn't land right. And I love to hear, you know, example that I had was I created an activity that I thought was going to be amazing for students with sand and water. And it was supposed to be about adding up doubloons and money, and what it turned into was sand and water going everywhere. Nobody learned anything about math. They just learned that it was really fun to throw sand, right? So all of it was built on the activity, but not the objective. And so that's another piece that I want to hear, is that, you know, the fun of what we do in education, right, is that activity or how we develop it. But the apple should be, the core of it should be that learning objective, and we dip it in the fun of who we are and how we can make it land, right? So I don't know, there's a ton of awesome stuff that I love doing interviews. But I guess one of the things up here that I saw was a questions do you have for us? And I would have, you know, 2 or 3 questions prepared and ready for them. And one of them being, I love the one, I believe that was I think it was Karen talking about like a mentor. But then also, you know, I would look and see, you know, how, what's something that you love about your community? What's something that you love about your teachers or your schools? And so you get a good idea if they look at each other and they're waiting for somebody to answer. That's a little scary, right? So they better have something ready. So, you know, those are things that you start to get, you start to take a temperature of who they are and, you know, make all this hard work that you're putting in worth it and go to a place that you feel supported. And remember that you're interviewing them too, just like Neil said, and get to a place where you feel good.
Thank you. And seriously, students, I learned, this is why your professors are here, and Bianca, I learn from them every time I talk to them. They're awesome. I believe everybody spoke except the Illinois Teacher of the Year, and I hope she's at dinner doing like some Teacher of the Year type thing, but I don't know. Can you talk, Brianna? I want to give you a couple minutes, and then I do want to make sure we leave a little time for Q&A if students have questions. But Brianna, are you able to speak now, or?
Yeah, I just got back. I think two pieces of advice to build off of like what was already said. I think really having your own authentic personality shine through in your interview is so important. And I think getting ready for your first few job interviews can be so nerve-wracking because we're thinking, you know, I have to be this certain type of teacher in order to get hired. But the reality is that your administrators, your coworkers, and most importantly, your students are going to see who you really are. And so it's more important that they know who you are from the beginning, and that you also know who your school is to know if it's the right fit. Something that a lot of people don't actually know about me in my Teacher of the Year story is that I actually resigned from my first year of teaching in February. And I finished the year because I'm not a quitter. But I very quickly learned that the school that I was working in was not the right fit for me because I didn't do my due diligence of figuring out the culture and climate of the school, you know, who I would be working with in the community. And it was very clear to me that it was not the right fit. And so I ended up finding the right fit. As I said, I worked in the exact same high school that I started working in my second year of teaching for the rest of my career after that, right? And so I think when you think about those questions that you're planning to ask your administrative team that you're going to an interview with, having those questions, just like Mr. C just said, as far as how are you going to interview them as well. We talk so much about a teacher shortage right now, but there are so many of you who are qualified to work in so many different areas that you deserve to be the first one to choose where you want to work, right? And so asking them some questions about how they're planning to support you, and when their answers may not align with what you're looking for in a school, to keep looking. And so I think two things for future teachers. Mentoring programs, of course, are not guaranteed wherever you're working, right? Some schools have very robust mentoring programs and others don't have mentoring programs at all. My very first year of teaching, that's actually one of the reasons why I left my school. I felt like I was drowning because I didn't have a great mentor. And then the year after that, we had a mentoring academy for first and second year teachers in my new district, right? So it really just varies. So asking them, what does mentoring look like? What kind of supports can I expect? And if there is no mentor going to be assigned to me, what can I expect from you as my administrator? That's something that we teach all of you, right? That your administrators are also the prime developers of their staff, and you deserve to expect that out of them. But I also think for those of you who equity is really important to you, you also have taken 305, right? We are very passionate about equity at NLU. And so thinking about how does that fit into your future teacher journey? Different schools are at different points in their equity journeys, right? And so what is the professional development that you're going to be given as a teacher in that school around equity, around culturally responsive teaching, around thinking about meeting students where they are, depending on like their linguistic abilities, all of the different categories that your students may have needs in. And so what, like I said, professional opportunities are available to me that align with your school's goals. And if they don't have anything to say, then I think that that also tells you a lot about how much they've thought about that for their staff. But I guess if I can leave you with one thing, I have not been teaching for as many years as many people in this room, like I said. But in the 8 years that I have been teaching, I think that each of you, you remind me of so many of my amazing coworkers that I've had over the years. And I know that each of you will find the place where you're supposed to go. And so I think that just going into your interview as confident as you can be about the skills and abilities that you know that you already have, and figuring out a way that you can showcase those in a way that is going to best represent who you are and also who you will be to your students. So I think those are my tips, Dr. Green.
You are awesome, all of you. And wow. And before we go to the Q&A part, which we have 7 minutes, I promise that I want to do that. I will say practice. Practice is key. It's not like, I always ask my student teachers that I work with, okay, tell me, first class, tell me about your philosophy of teaching, your teaching philosophy. And they're like, I know they have it, but unless you practice saying the words, it doesn't really come out that easy. Okay. So practice, practice, practice. All right. Now, students, you have a chance to ask away. If you want to put it in the chat, you can put your question in the chat. Anything you want to ask or did not cover that you feel like you really want us to talk about. And also I created a resource for you of all the questions that your professors put together, plus the questions I got from the RSVP and some other things. And then at the end, there's an exit slip for the, pretty please fill that out. But any questions open to the students? And
I have a
Bianca,
question.
you can jump in as well. Oh, I have one. Yay.
Oh, yeah, it's me. I always have a question. I see so many of my professors. I'm so excited. It's actually twofold. When you're going for an interview, are we at some point, for people who do the interviewing process, do we meet the team? Is that part, like, if I'm interviewing for kindergarten, am I going to meet the kindergarten team? Because I'm a collaborator. I'm a person who's going to ask a lot of questions. So I need to know that I fit in with that grade level team that I'm going to be with. Is that part of the interview process? Are they included in that?
Great question. And I believe Professor Austin raised her hand. Is that right, Karen?
I did, and I know that like Dr. Fitch could probably talk about right now. I know that it depends on the school. So I have been at schools where that is a possibility. I've been at my own school before where we had the team interview the candidates first. And then as they moved to the next round, then they interviewed with the administrator. So, and then we had them come back and work with the team, do a lesson or observe. So it really depends on the school from my experience.
I think it's important, right, to know who you're working with. Okay, and then my other question is, this is kind of silly, but I'm old, right? I'm older than these young ones graduating. When you're hiring, is that a factor? Is that a big factor for you guys?
Well, it shouldn't be.
Okay, I hope it's not.
Illegal, right?
Can I jump in really quick? I have to say something. So my mom went through the process where she went to school later in life after she had 4 kids. And they actually told her when she was hired that because of her life experience, she was the one that received the job as opposed to students that had just exited college because of her connection with her own kids and just having that experience in general outside of the classroom. So don't let that stop you. She was told that like directly.
Okay, that makes me happy to hear. I was really nervous about that.
No, do not be nervous about that.
And Kim emailed me earlier and you said something about being older. You're not old. You're fine. You are, like, stop saying that. And you wouldn't want to work for somebody that's illegal, number one. And you wouldn't want to work for somebody who had that mindset anyway. So
okay, I appreciate that.
Get the job you deserve. All
and
right.
Thank you.
Confidence, Kim, and exude confidence at all times.
That's right.
Well, thanks to all of you. I have about 5 of you on this panel that I've had. You've all boosted that confidence. Thank you very much.
Good, good. Susanna, you are patiently raising your hand. And Bella is in the background with Susanna.
I have 2 questions, but one I've already forgotten because I'm trying to think of everything I want to ask you guys. But really quickly, so when you guys are talking about, and I know that this has come up before in past interviews when you're asked what your weakness is. And so my biggest weakness in working in education thus far is I always have a fear of saying the incorrect things to parents when you have to deal with parents. Would this be an appropriate thing to use as a weakness in an interview, or is that something that an admin does not want to hear? Like, do you not want to hear somebody say, I feel my biggest weakness is dealing with parents, I guess?
Somebody go ahead and take that one. And I see Debbie,
Yeah.
you're ready to, or anybody, go ahead.
Yeah. So I wouldn't use that one. And I also think it's like phrasing, right? Is it Susanna? So for instance, if I heard someone say dealing with parents, right? It means it's like they're the problem. I got to solve it, and it's a burden on me as an educator, right? So it's all about that phrasing of how we work with. I would probably stay away from it and move towards the things that you might not know yet because you haven't worked there. Like things that you might need to work on. It's like, I don't necessarily know the curriculum that I'm going to use yet. I'm excited. I looked online and you're using Wonders. I've never used it before, but that's an area of, improvement. I am going to work in special education. I generally know that there's X amount of percentage of students with IEPs and X amount of students with, specific learning disabilities, but I really don't know your continuum of services. So I'd be interested to know more about that. So you kind of flip it into things that are unknowns and are unknowns because you haven't been there, right? That's a way to kind of phrase a weakness for them to kind of show you, for them to answer that question for you. You switch it more to a question. Does that make sense, Susanna?
Yes, thank you. That's exactly why I was saying I think my wording would be off. So that's why I was like, let me ask and
love
make
that
sure
advice.
that that's not something that would probably be the most appropriate. But thank you. Yes, I
I
understand.
love that. I love that
Yeah.
advice. I think in my first teacher interview, like a million years ago, I said, I care too much. That was not a good answer. I just care too much. That's my weakness. Don't say that either. Anybody else?
Can I chime in real quick just to
Yeah.
piggyback off what Connor said to Susanna?
Mhm.
What you don't want to do, Susanna, is pivot from your reality. If that's your feeling, right? And I do agree with Connor. You have to find a way to strategically ask that question in a way that comes out as I'm trying to receive more coaching and support around it. Because I feel that building relationships, having the parents as thought partners are essential for the child's development. Can you provide me with some strategies or best practices and things like that? So that's getting the answers for yourself. And also they're like, oh, wow, okay, I like this person already. So it's a way that you kind of have to word it, So I don't want you to think you can't ask it at all, but it's the way you have to say it. It's very important.
Don't say that. Some things you shouldn't tell anybody but God, and that may be one of them. Just try to figure out some things that that's more related to the job. This is not the time to be brutally honest. Don't tell them everything. I don't believe in lying, but I'm not
Duly
gonna
noted.
that
I do
much.
have, yeah, duly no. I do have a little bit of a habit of being brutally honest, and so I do struggle with, and I think that's probably where I'm going to struggle when I do go to interviews, because I do come off, kind of like rough initially, because I do struggle with, am I saying this properly? Is this coming out the way that I'm interpreting it in my mind? So yes, I duly noted. Thank you.
Susanna, being brutally honest is a good thing. You just have to practice, like how you frame things. That's if you practice and you're brutally honest, and you think about how you phrase things, the words you use. That's a good thing. So doesn't make you weak. Okay, so I want to be respectful of time. We're already over. Like I said, we could talk for hours, this group, but you're amazing. I know Cara had to jump off. I'm just first, thank you so much, colleagues, for doing this. We thought there were going to be more people, but you really helped these students. I recorded it. We're going to put it out there, and I think there's something to this. I know, I've met with students for years in a format similar like this, but tonight was all the focus all on jobs. And I know the students who are here tonight are going to be better because of the time that you gave to help them. So I asked, we all shared our thoughts, and my final thought is, you earn this. Be yourself in your interview. Be confident, and gain confidence through practice. I cannot stress that enough. And then always remember, teaching is your superpower. All right. So Susanna, teaching is your superpower, and all the students that are left. But I will follow up. I'll send out like an exit slip where it's anonymous. You can tell us what you think of tonight. I'll send out the video and I'll follow up with all that. But I have as you can see, your professors really care for you. Like, they're not here because I'm paying them $1,000 a piece to be here. They're here because they care. And you know, so you have a great support system. You know, use it. And if you see them, if you're taking a course and you see their names, take their names, because they're all awesome. So that's it. All right, everybody. So I guess that's good night, and thanks again.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
It looks like
Professor Neal, I think Jasmine had a question. I'm willing to stay on.
I'm
So
willing to stay on
Karen,
too.
yeah, I think Karen wanted to understand more of what Jasmine was asking.
Is she still on?
I don't know if she's still on.
What was the question?
How common is childhood education?
Yeah.
I think I know what she meant. Yeah, she might have hung up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think she did. But it was about elementary or early childhood education or something. I
Yeah,
think
how
I saw.
common is it? I believe she was asking in terms of positions, maybe.
Yes,
Like,
I think
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yep. So I see Edith, Vanessa, Sandy, not to put you on the spot, but you got us. Any questions or anything you want to ask?
No, Professor. I just want to know how can I get the exit ticket?
I'll follow up and email everything. Probably
Okay.
tomorrow morning, but it's 9 o'clock where I am on the East Coast, but I'll email everything tomorrow morning. By then, the recording, everything. So I'll send it to you. Okay. And Sandy,
All right.
what year are you?
I'm a senior. I'm about to graduate.
Awesome.
Yay.
And
Yeah.
what degree are you getting?
Early childhood education.
Amazing. All right. Very
Yes.
cool. I will follow up. So are you interviewing right now, or or just getting started with that process?
I'm getting started. I already have a job, and they say in my school, my principal said they're probably just gonna find out if I can get a position there. But if not, I'm gonna get prepared for 2 interviews. Yes, for the
Awesome.
interviews. Yes.
Very good. And as you know, the application process is not like a 20-minute thing. So
No.
plan at least 2 or 3 days for that, just that alone. So
Yes.
the earlier the better. If you can do it this term while you're getting ready to graduate, do it. But that's awesome, Sandy. It's nice to meet you. You've got some
Thank
resources.
you.
I'll follow up with everything tomorrow.
All right. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Vanessa.
Hi. I'm actually, I'm gonna graduate in June too. At the end. I actually went to an interview yesterday.
And
I think it was good, but it kind of scared me off too.
What do you mean?
Because it was for dual language and I am bilingual, but they were like 80% in Spanish, 20% in English. And I think that kind of all the courses that I took and everything that we've learned has always been in English. So I know how to teach the content in English. So now it's like, I don't know if I'm prepared for that. Do I want to take that challenge? Do I want to steer completely away from it? So it just opened up like more questions in my mind where I was not prepared for that. Honestly, I was just more and that was at the end because that was one of the questions that I had for them. I didn't go in with like just questions about if they're like their mentorship. I did ask them that. I did ask them more about like what is their capsize and like the classroom, more like the team as well, who was part of the team. Like so, but then it came down like, oh, what is your model for dual language? And that's when they said 80-20. And like obviously like I didn't say, I was like, okay, at the interview, I wasn't gonna like give them my reaction. But when I got into the car, I was like, oh my God, what?
Vanessa, do not worry. If you can teach it in English, you can teach it in Spanish. A center, and Neil knows this about me. So I work at an early Head Start center. My center was about like 93 to 95% Hispanic. And I was the site director. I had to learn Spanish. And we had one Spanish speaking teacher for each classroom. And I had to learn Spanish to communicate with my parents.
Mhm.
So you already have that one up.
Yes.
You already know both languages
Yes.
and you know how to teach it in English. So you'll do fine. You'll do great. Just
So-
make sure that you know, build that rapport with your students and make sure you learn their learning styles and then just adapt your lessons to that.
Okay. Yeah, because the positions that I kind of been concentrating on, like all like the ESL, the ELL, because most of my experience has been like as a para